So I kind of want to know what makes a love coach? What makes that happen?
Like, how did I get here?
Yeah, I'm sure it was a journey. How did you get
Yeah,
here?
it's interesting because I've always, I mean, I love love. Who doesn't love love, right? But we're always either running from it, hiding from it, wanting more, needing it. And I saw that a lot when I was a social worker. Um, it always came back to whatever the issue was within the family dynamic or whatever it was. It always came back to like self love. It came back to love and how you were loved and
Right.
how love was role modeled. And so, um, I got real passionate about that, but people always come to me about relationships.
Mm.
And that kind of started like, okay, like everyone's always asking, people are always coming to me about it. I'm a bartender part time, off and on for like 20 years. So you hear a lot of stories, you're having lots of conversations, you're getting lots of the feedback, real world information. Um, but yeah, I think it just got to, I love to help people. And after being in social work, you're kind of restricted by a box. So love coaching is like, I love that. I'm passionate about it. I want people to feel love, be loved, and give love. But yeah, that's where my experience comes from. I mean, think about it, bartending, hearing everybody else's stories, and I've got my own stories.
Right.
Having an avoidant breakup, losing my daughter's father tragically. So letting go, learning red flags, becoming more self-aware. Like it's been a personal journey, but I can pretty much tap into any conversation you want to talk about when it comes to love. 'Cause I feel like I've either had it, been exposed to it, had it role modeled for me, or experienced it myself. So
I think that being a bartender and having that background, it kind of opens you up to helping people because ultimately, at the end of the day, it just seems like it's people out there who just want to help other people.
oh yeah, for sure.
You
Like
know?
either it's either in you or it's
Right.
not. And I'm sure everybody's kind to a certain extent, wants to help the fellow neighbor. But as far as working with people to improve themselves, to become more self-aware, to resource them with the tools to create the life or the love they want, yeah, you gotta have a certain kind of drive for that.
I kind of wanted to jump right into something that I don't know if you kept up with it or
Okay.
not, that's okay. But there's this vicious rumor out there that Barack and Michelle Obama that they are separating due to Jennifer Aniston. Uh, and I just want to know, have you heard anything about
I have
that?
not heard that, and I'm usually up to par on
Really?
love gossip. I am. Where'd you hear this? What was the news? When did this happen? Yeah, unfortunately, unfortunately, I'm going to have to do some more work tonight, some more research on that one because I haven't heard anything. I can't believe it hasn't popped up on my screen. And if that's true, I'm so disappointed. And do I believe it? I mean, you can't believe everything you see and hear, obviously. And I want to be like, come on now, really, Jennifer and Obama? But then it's like, look at what's in the news today. Like, I mean, it's possible. We don't know their business. But I would hate that because that's a couple that's really, I don't know their personal business. I'm sure they have their own challenges. But that's a couple that inspires.
Well, I kind of wanted to ask because I think that there would be some I think it would be like, even though it would be their relationship breakdown, I think it would affect people all across relationships, right? Because you kind of example certain relationships. You look at Barack Obama and Michelle Obama, and you know other people who you favor that are at that top tier relationship level.
Yeah. So if that falls and crumbles, you're gonna like drain a lot of hope out of people because they're gonna say, "Oh gosh, they couldn't even."
Yeah.
Like, and then it's gonna go into, "Oh, men always cheat," and
Yes.
and it's in their nature. And
Yes. Well, if you ask women, women always say that men cheat more, right? Like way more, not
yeah,
just a little bit more. Women are a lot of women are just dead set on that fact that men are just avid cheaters.
I just feel like when people say all men cheat, and then it's like once a cheater, always a cheater. Like, listen, I've cheated in the past. I'm not a cheater nowadays. Like, I'm grown up. I have integrity. I'm like, I live my life by morals,
Right.
But like, come on, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't. And it's not really about. I don't think it's like her a gender. You know what I mean? I don't think that's
Okay.
what it is. I think it's more personal than that. So at the end of the day, if you're a woman who is stuck in that kind of mindset, excuse me, if you're stuck in that kind of mindset, like all men cheat, you've got a big block in front of you. So if you're looking for love, you've got a challenge ahead of you because you can't have that mindset. Not that I mean, maybe it's a rarity, but maybe someone can come along and change your view, right? But your insecurities will play into that relationship as well. But you can't have that mindset and think you're going to have a really healthy, successful love life.
What does a normal relationship a normal, healthy, good relationship look like? Because I think ultimately that's what people want.
I think it's about finding somebody who's aware. You don't have to be completely healed to be able to move on or find like another partner or find a healthy relationship. I think you have to be somewhat aware of how your past impacts future relationships. If you have that level of awareness, then I can say, hey, this is something I got to be aware of. I got to make sure I don't bring that into. If you don't have that a level of awareness, then it's a blind spot and you're going to be screwed anyways, right?
Hmm.
So it's really just about making sure that you have awareness first, because then from there you can start working on it.
Why does it seem like we gravitate towards unhealthy relationships?
Because most people have a example of unhealthy in their lives. When I work with most people, I'll ask them, "Have you ever had an example of a healthy love? Like growing up, have you ever had?" I'll ask you, "Have you ever did you have a example of a healthy love?" And when I say healthy love, I'm not just saying, because some people will say, "Oh yeah, my parents were married 40 years."
Right.
That doesn't mean it was healthy. So have you do you have an example? Was a healthy example of love role model to you
Okay.
growing up?
Yeah, put
Yeah.
me on the spot. I would say for a long, extended amount of my childhood, there was a healthy relationship from as early as I can recall. But somewhere in between, around the time of being a teenager, that's when my mother and father's relationship started to break down. That set me on a course to learn a journey that I probably wouldn't have had to learn uh, if it wasn't for those circumstances.
Yeah, and the positive side to that is that at a certain age, you did get that to see that example, right?
Hmm.
So you got to see both examples, but most people that I work with and most people that I ask, most people that I talk to, most people have not had a healthy example. And if they think they did, a lot of them will, like, let's say 50% say, oh yeah, yeah, I did. But those are the 50% that just saw their parents, dimming their lights or, just getting along for the sake of the children, or it wasn't really a healthy example, right? So then you've got a smaller pilot, a smaller population. But yeah, the majority of people haven't had that healthy example. And I think that's one thing that sets me aside from most love coaches. Like you'll hear love coaches talking about their own journey. And
Right.
yes, I have my own journey, but I was, my dad remarried my stepmom. They were married for 30, I think 36, 37 years, but they raised a blended family, had a
Okay.
business together,
Right.
a successful business together, and they role modeled such a healthy example that, like, I'm fortunate enough to know that that's what a healthy relationship looks like, and they always held that standard. It's really rare.
To your point, most people will say, "Oh yeah, my family was married together for like 30, 40 years." I'm like, "Yeah, but it was 30, 40 years of turbulence. It was tumultuous. It was nothing about that was smooth." So I saw healthy opportunities of the good times. I've seen the bad times. I saw a great example of what commitment looks like,
Hmm.
but was it necessarily committed to a call, a value, a belief? No, it was a commitment to like, hey, I am locked in on a situation because so much time has been put in, and
Yeah.
that was a lot of the school of thought they were under.
That was, I don't mean to interrupt.
No,
That
go
was
ahead.
lovely. Committed to the what you say.
The situation,
Yeah,
yes,
circumstance, not the person. Perfect example.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, that was such clarity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the
Brian.
struggle. That's the struggle for like a young guy like me
Yeah.
developing a relationship. I have a new girl, and it's been really awesome. We
Mhm.
got a chance to be friends, and I told her from an honest place about where I was in my journey that I would have been a terrible relationship for you 9 months ago before we even started this,
Yeah.
because I had to be forced to be in a situation with a friend. That's not something I always had healthy boundary with female friends.
Right.
So we were forced to be friends because she was so committed to her relationship and she's strong in her values. There were circumstances around us where I was more caring of the environment than necessarily jumping that situation and that issue. So I was like, all right, I don't want to disturb the peace here. Everybody good. We got a good little thing going here. Let me play back seat. But it allowed the who she was and her character, who she was as a person, to flourish. It allowed her to see me and
Yeah.
all my ups and downs of just being a human being before, you got to button it up and be, Superman.
Yeah.
So it was a whole different approach that I got to experience.
So lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice
Yep. Yep. So, what are the top 3 red flags?
to look for in someone.
Yes.
I mean, listen, there's red flags. I mean, one of the best things you could do is stop and evaluate your past relationships and what red flags did you miss there, right? Because in that way you can be really aware. Like, oh man, I missed when they used to say this and didn't really line up, and now years later it happened again. Like I should have paid attention. But I think one is a huge one is making sure their words and actions align. But they have to be both, right? Because some people are really good at saying something and their actions don't show, right? And then On the flip side, you can't always believe everything you hear, or I mean, they do, because some people do things. I'm making sense right now.
No,
Some people, yeah, okay. Some people do things, right? And it's like, oh, but they did this, so they must love me. It must be, they must be interested. But it's like, it's not about actions or words. The two have to go together. They have to be intertwined. Like your words and actions have to just be, and flow with one another. So when they start to look like they're not, that's when you start to, it's a red flag. Doesn't mean it's a deal breaker, but it definitely means like, hold on, like I've been noticing lately, like, we've always had this pattern, we've always done this, and I'm noticing that you say one thing now and now you're doing another, or, you show up and you do this, but you didn't say. It's communication that's going to help you flow through that, but you need to make sure those two are intertwined. That's the first one. So that's a key one. Number two, one to pay attention is if you want a relationship, know what you want, first of all. It doesn't mean you have to want marriage, you don't have to want a relationship, but have clarity on what you really want so that you can attract what you really want. So what I mean by is like, you got people out here that are dating with intention. They are intentional. They want to get married. They want to have a long-term relationship. They know what they're looking for. And you have other people who are unintentional. And so a red flag would be when they're like, well, I just kind of like to go with the flow. Like I'm not in a rush to get married. I'm not in a rush to get engaged. I'm not in a rush to I'm a slow burn. You know what I mean? That's a good one. And there's nothing wrong with it. Slow burn, but
Right.
we're talking about a slow that's not like it's not even burning at this point. That kind of slow burn. So I think you have to pay attention to and people avoid that question when they're dating. A lot of times that question doesn't get asked right away. Or if it does, people don't give the true answer. I hear a lot of, especially like if they're dating or dating apps, it's like, what are you looking for? Well, I'm, if I find the right person, I'm looking for a relationship.
Right.
That's like a cop out. You should, the intentional man is saying, I'm looking for like either a wife or I'm looking for a long-term relationship. He's not sitting there saying, and she's not sitting there saying, well, if I meet the right person, we all want to meet the right person. Ain't that how that works?
Yeah.
So what are you saying really? What you're saying is let's go with the flow. Yeah, everyone needs to know exactly you want to meet a man, you want to meet this, and you want to meet her, you want to build this life, but what are you looking for? Not everybody's looking for the same
Right.
thing. And they're not looking for the same thing right now. And people make that mistake. You have to have two individuals looking for the same thing at the same time. You know what I mean? Oh, we both believe in marriage, but guess what? Like, you're not trying to get married for another 10 years. And I'm I'm ready to get married now. You know what I mean? Like, you have to want it at the same time. So that's another red flag to pay attention to. What's that timeline look like? Know what you want, have the confidence and the courage to talk about it up front so you can get out the way and not waste time. And then also have the clarity about do we want the same thing at the same time?
Right. So you said marriage, right? I mean, ultimately, I would hope that everyone would want to be married. But then you said that it's okay to just have a relationship and just have this thing exist.
If you have, that's the clarity. Listen, there are people out here who don't want to get married.
Okay.
There are people out who want to have poly relationships. There are people who want to have a different diverse type of relationship. Know what you want, because if I'm having a date with you and you say, yeah, like I'm just, I'm down for a long-term relationship. Long-term and a marriage are two different things. So the next question I would follow that with is like, are you wanting to get married? You may just want to have a companion for the rest of your life.
So what's the point then? If you don't have
life is set up different nowadays.
That is so difficult.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like, I gotta agree with her on this one. I'm just pulling more from experience of the dating scene, because being young and being in the dating scene, it sucks because those are conversations that are tough to have with anyone. Yeah, regardless of what age or stage you're at. But it seems to be a lost form of communication. Communication is just lacked overall. And because you're not having an opportunity to say, hey, this is what I want to do, and then to let it show, that's where a lot of confusion comes in. Because I agree with you when you say when your words and alignment doesn't line up. I always explain it to my little sisters like this. Hey, this is where disrespect in a relationship comes up, when there's what he says he's going to do and then what he's actually doing. That void is not called a void, it's called disrespect. Yeah. That's where disrespect for yourself and then disrespect and resentment in you is going to come out to him. And that's going to happen because expectations weren't clearly communicated. Right. And then complete in fullness. And that fullness could be a timestamp for some people. Sometimes you might need a deadline to get that person urgently going. And at other times it's just one of those situations where it's like, man, you didn't even tell me that this is what you was into.
But don't you think it's all a farce? If someone is telling you they just want you around, basically, because what I'm saying is, if you just telling me I don't want to get married. I don't want to get a house together. I don't want to commingle, cohabitate. I just want you where I want you at. Doesn't it seem like it's just you're dealing with someone who is not ready.
If you're someone who wants the opposite of what he just said, right?
Yeah,
like
so
if you're someone who wants more than that, then you're not aligned. That's not who you're dealing with. But you have to understand, marriage is not like the end all be all nowadays. Like we're in a totally different society. So we've got people like the new trend is like people being married living apart, you know, and people be like, oh, how can you do that?
That life.
Yeah, and it's like there's nothing wrong with that. Like people have different lives and lifestyles nowadays. So it still comes back to, even like you said, it's about moving. Know what you're doing, know what you want. If you know what you want, then you can move with intention. And I know the conversations can be hard no matter what age or stage you're at, but that all comes down to intention and confidence, which is courage. You know, so the fact is you've got to be able to be. That's why I'm always telling people, like, I'm a certified confidence coach. So not only am I a motivational love coach, I'm a certified confidence coach.
Okay.
So you know.
What's the website for that? Can you just go ahead? Yeah.
Well, you can just go to my website and I can help you all about that.
I'll put it in the link. Okay.
But the thing is I'm a certified confidence coach, and that's why I always practice, like, confidence is so key. You have to have confidence because that's going to allow me to open those conversations. I don't know somebody I'm meeting you for a first date, and yeah, that is uncomfortable, but I'm confident enough to ask the questions within that date. I'm going to be asking it on the phone probably before we even make it to that date.
See, but when I look at those, I'm going to pick on the polyamorous people. Is that the name for it? Polygamous or polyamorous? Which one?
Polyamorous.
Okay. Polyamorous. Especially when I look at the poly relationships, it seems like it's an imbalance there. It seems like it is one very strong, very confident person who is steering everyone else in the direction that they want to go.
He's the captain.
Yes, and everybody else is just following because they don't have that confidence. Because I see, like, so it was, not just a guy either. It was a woman who had a poly relationship. It was, and I'm sure everyone's seen it online. It's like two black guys, and she's bringing another black guy into the situation.
Where's he getting his gossip at?
I'm gonna send it. I'm gonna send it to y'all. No. I'm gonna send it to you.
I thought you were gonna go with smart. I do know some of those relationships.
So me and my wife watched this. It's like on TLC.
It's kind of wrong, yeah.
Yeah. So you saw it before?
No, I saw a different one.
Okay.
A different family where it's like almost like uncomfortable. So like it's this daughter who's dating this guy, and the mom is like freely making videos kissing him and doing like, oh, I'm taking both of them on. Yeah, it's kind of, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know.
You're talking about that's
whoa.
I think that's beyond poly.
It's poly. Everything is like
That is way.
Well, I have a different.
Yeah, that's way beyond poly right there.
it's kind of wild though. Still want to.
But so I see, so I see this guy, these two guys, and you could tell they don't have the confidence of men. Okay. We're honest with each other, and I can see that those dudes do not have confidence. And this woman, she is very flamboyant, and you can tell like her personality is super outgoing, and she's just like, I'm bringing Roger over today, you know, and you guys ready for it? And they're sitting there like this, like, yeah, we're ready for Roger, you know, okay, whatever. And Roger comes through the door, and he's all, and I'm just using it now. Yeah, but he comes through the door, he's all like, you know, ready to jump in. And it just seemed like it's just a trick. It just seems like they were being set up the whole time. And that's how I see a lot of the poly relationships. Matter of fact, not even just the poly relationships. That's how I see a lot of the quote unquote bad relationships work. It's a power imbalance there. Yeah. Can you speak to that?
I think maybe not so much even a power imbalance. It's a polarity issue, like feminine, masculine energy. The roles are being reversed. You know, leading, being submissive. All these things are getting so thrown around, and really, you're not, like, a lot of people don't understand the dynamics of like masculine and feminine energy. There is power within that, right? But it's going to come down to that. As far as that situation you were talking about, like, there's lots of relationships like that, right? Someone's less in the poly relationships. There's going to be maybe someone who's not as confident or so forth. But I have to be honest. I actually know two different poly, let's say families. I don't know. Listen, it's not my area of expertise. Okay. But what I can tell you is that they're all very strong. They're all very compatible. They're all very confident. However, if we peel back the layers and the psychology, you know, major in my head, you know, in me comes out, then I start to think back, like, you know, does he need more than one woman to satisfy him because he hasn't done the work on himself? But these are also men who have done the work. So I just think you have to be very cognizant that people want different things, but it comes back to clarity, knowing what you want, because in one of those relationships, there was a time where one of the other partners just wasn't as happy. They wanted more and they were settling. Then that means you're settling. That means that's not an alignment for you. It's not for everybody.
Well, that's the thing for me.
So-
It's always like a conflict there. It's never like
Yeah.
it's never like these people are like, "Yay, I'm so really happy." They always show like this little inner political
Yeah.
conflict within the relationship where either the man or the woman has to go over to each person and condition them to like what's about to take place. Like you can't just be like, "Hey, I met Justin today, or I met Tisha today. She's coming in. You ready?" You know, yeah, oh yeah, cool, I'm ready. It's always like, wait a minute, I gotta sit here and talk to you.
Well, think about it. In relationships in general, just like you were talking a little while ago, you have to have clarity on expectations. You know what I mean?
Okay,
Like,
okay.
You have to have expectations. You have to have boundaries. You have to have these conversations, communication, so that you guys know what to expect and know what. And then the ones that are successful, the two relationships that I'm aware of, they are successful because they do have open communication. The boundaries are set way ahead of time. You know what you're getting involved in. This is not like you need to come and change the way you think. This is where we are at. We're at over here. And if you want to be a part of that, you're welcome. Like they definitely have communication clarity, you know,
Right.
and compatibility. So I think it's just, you're going to see that in all relationships though, right? You're going to see the conflicts and things, but
So
Yeah.
I'm not gonna beat up the poly people, but it's a fun topic because it's so foreign to me, and I have so many questions about it. Like I think I probably just need to read up on it because I have no clue about it. But it's so
you know, I watched a documentary years and years ago before it was even more popular than it is today, right?
okay.
And it's interesting. They were sharing, it was they were in a house, it was on TV. I don't know, but there was many of them, right? Many people involved. And one of the things that they said that always has stuck to me all these years, and it's been like 20 years since I watched this. I think it was like on HBO, and HBO was something we used to watch when we were younger, okay?
Yeah, it was yeah.
Like that was our movie channel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like so I think it was on that, but the thing was is they said, you know, how can I expect this one person, this one partner, they were considering doing poly and opening the doors to explore different avenues, right? And when they were talking with each other, it was like, how do you expect this one person, just this one person, to fulfill 100% of what you need, right? Your emotional, your mental, your spiritual, all these different avenues, your fun, your social, your hobbies. And, you know, in my head, I was thinking, well, you don't expect that person to do all that, right? You have friends, you have families, you have your own life. But the truth is it comes with a lot of responsibilities. And they were just saying, you can't expect like that partner to be able to support 80% of what you need. So they were like, if it's all about love and it's, you know, and they see past everything else, then why would you not want other people? Because they can fit different, you know, different molds, almost like a puzzle piece, you know?
Oh, okay.
So when I heard that, I mean, I think the thing that stood out for me was not that like, oh, it was just that it's really important not to rely on your partner for all those things, you know, and so many people do nowadays. They lose themselves.
Yeah, I think that that's probably my biggest success strategy in relationships is that I put none of my happiness on the person who I'm with, like none of it. Like all happiness for me is driven by me. And if I'm not happy, it can't be extended to that person because they don't control it. Too many people put too much into expecting that a person should validate them, right? And I don't think that's how relationships work at all. I think when you find a happy person who's happy and another person who's happy, those people should be together because that's going to create success. But often
that's ideal.
Yeah, but oftentimes you find a person who's not happy, who's looking for something. I need something. I need, you know, it's revolved around wealth or finances. It's revolved around some type of emotional condition, or I want you to fix or patch up something that's happened in my life. So I'm a firm believer in only dealing with people who are healed, who are on a trajectory of just like being able to handle their own emotions and work through their own processes and not put all of that stress on me. I've been in those stressful relationships where it's like, why can't you fix me? It's not my problem. So now I'm totally at that point where it's like, it's not my problem. And I push that, especially for fellas, because we are always trying to repair something. That's part of our whole relationship pattern is fix, resolve, solve. And it does absolutely nothing for us, but breaks us at the end. So
I like that you said that. And, you know, a relationship, a happy relationship can only be as happy as the two individuals involved. Which again comes back to that confidence, right? Like get to know yourself. Like so many people are out here just continuing to date and relationship with people from one to the next. And maybe they learn little things about themselves along the way. But do you know what a quicker path you could be on if you just took 6 months to dedicate to yourself to learn your attachment style, your all these different things, your
Trey's over there clapping.
your
Yeah,
conflict
just
style, your conflict management style, how you hold space, what you need, how you need space to be held for you, how do you need to be loved, like all these different questions. And people don't take the time. They'll just be like, oh, I can't meet anybody, so now I'm on to like Bumble or something. It's like, but what work have you done? Because you're going to attract a whole nother person the more you evolve. So, I mean, yeah, and with men always doing the fix, 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 I worked with men the first 3 years of coaching, just with men for
Okay.
Divorce and breakup recovery. I was super passionate about it. I have 4 brothers. I worked with coworkers, men who have been through divorces. They were destructive. Some took their lives, all kinds of things. And it really made me passionate about, like, men don't really talk to anybody. They have, first of all, rarely do they have a healthy male masculine role model in their lives that they can have an intimate relationship with, right, on a level of communicating openly and transparently. So, and that just crosses across all cultures, because even in certain cultures where fathers are maybe they have different roles they're taking on, right, there's still that lack of communication and that openness. So men are really left, boys are really left to kind of navigate that scene. And unless they have that healthy role model, they really don't know how to go about these things, but they're on a continuous path of trying to fix, and fix. But I always try to remind women that I work with them. We got to learn how to hold space for men a little bit better, because we really do put a lot of pressure on men, and men carry a lot of pressure. Like when you get in a relationship, you hear about the woman's trauma and everything she's been through. And, men are there to support her and show up, right? But rarely ever do we give them, and we say we want it, but we rarely give the opportunity for men to really open up and kind of share what their traumas have been or what they need to work through so that they can become better men. So women really need to understand it's not just all about them.
Right. But I partially blame that on us men in general, because I mean, honestly, you can try to connect with men multiple times, unless as a man, and unless it's something that brings us together, and it's usually not. But that's the thing; it can be sports, it can be something, but it's oftentimes it's never anything of substance. It's not like, hey, let's sit around and have a conversation, or let's go for coffee. We can go for beer. We can get drunk all night long. Right, and play pool and play cards and talk shit, but we will not connect on that higher level, and it just creates so many problems in our lives that we don't even begin to understand. I think it's a huge problem that needs to be tackled, but I don't put all the blame on women.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I think it's a mutual responsibility for sure. But what I'm saying is, so often when we get in relationships, we are coming from other relationships. Men are less quiet about it. So you're going to hear about the woman expressing herself first. I just went through this relationship, this bad experience, this toxicity. And men might share to a certain extent. But what I'm saying is women tend to open up and let that share all the details. Men might share this much. And if you would just hold a little bit more space and create a more safe space, we might have a better line of communication. I'm not saying that's all women. I'm just saying that is where I know as myself.
No, I get it.
Like you have to be able to do that. And as far as men, I just think, that's another gap when it comes to relationships. There's so many gaps. Like, why is dating so hard nowadays? You said it yourself. Like, men just don't go to that substance level. They stay at surface, and they do that within relationships too a lot of times. And if you're not in dating, women who are intentional, usually more awakened, more conscious, have done the work. Like me, I'm looking for substance. So if you can't come with a substance level of conversation, I have no interest. It's not about anymore about like the attraction. Well, attraction is important, yes, but like I'm saying, it's no longer about like who's good looking and if you're 6 foot and like all these different things. It's more about substance, and a lot of men are lacking that because they've never really had to. They don't do the substance level with anybody.
Right. But that's why I pick on fellas. Like I had to build to this because I do want you guys to touch on this later. But one of the things I consider a red flag is boundaries. If you don't have any boundaries, or you haven't even identified your boundaries, you're not ready to be in a relationship.
Yes, it's no self-respect.
No self-respect. And that's a problem if you don't even know your boundaries. But that starts with self-discovery. Like the number one thing I always tell people, regardless of gender, but I especially pick on the fellas because I do a lot of mentoring, is that when's the last time you spent 6 months no romantic interest? Like you spent 6 months of your time and no romantic interest. That means any interest you have is either strictly platonic, like you made a friend and you have I'm not looking to do anything with this girl, or you're just out there doing your own thing.
Right.
And most of the time, that test right there, that litmus test, is always failed. They always say, "Oh no, I don't know last time." I was like, because during that time that you're gonna have to be alone with yourself, you're gonna have questions come up.
Such a great point. Women are a lot of the same way too. Like, I mean, it's just everybody, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But they have no boundaries. They'll just keep going. But a lot of times people don't have those boundaries and don't want to do the self-discovery because that they have to take a deeper look. They're deflecting, right? I can
Mhm.
deflect, and if I don't have to look at myself, I can just find the next person. We put a lot of focus on, meeting the right man or woman, right? Like they're going to will know and all these things. But the fact is we have so much work to do. We wouldn't be we're relying on that man or woman to like fulfill all those things that we've been deflecting, like we've been trying to be distracted, and it doesn't work like that. Another thing, when you said just that time alone, did you guys know that like during COVID that like the coaching business just took off? Like I was more busy during COVID than I have been any other time in my coaching business.
Wow.
Because people were isolated. People couldn't go anywhere. They had to sit and learn about themselves and get uncomfortable and be uncomfortable. And, lots of things were happening during that time. So it was definitely a time where people were reaching out and they were taking that time. So even though COVID was such a challenging time, I like to think that it was a time that a lot of people took more time to look at themselves and learn more things and become more aware.
Okay. Well, I'm super pessimistic. Okay. I am. And I got, I'm serious. So I gotta ask. No, my wife is like anything she says, I have like a rebuttal or something pessimistic. So, because I'm always like leery of things, and I'm a man. But how many of those fellas just wanted to talk to the love coach because they like the love coach? Do you deal with that? Like,
No,
like guys who just like they say like, okay, I want to learn, I want to grow, and then really it's like I just want to get on a date.
Those are the ones that inbox me and then never follow through with the payment. Yeah. I've never actually, people ask me that all the time. I've actually never had any of my clients. Well, maybe a few of them have been like, you're just an amazing woman, or like,
right.
Like stunning, whatever. I've never had any of my clients cross any of my boundaries, but I also think I set really good firm boundaries. Like I don't come across as, I don't present myself as someone that like you can really test the waters with and see if like I'm that woman. You already know I am, by the way I present myself. So.
What are those signals? I like that too. So I'm just curious, like what are those signals that you send off that make it so that men don't even approach?
Now, you know what? Sometimes I'm like, sometimes I'm like, I think it's definitely an energy. It's a frequency. It's my energy, and I'm on a different frequency.
Okay.
My frequency is higher. I believe everything's energy. So I do think I think it's just the way I present myself, the way I speak, the way I communicate, the words, my verbiage, what I choose to say, so I don't, that's a great question. I would love to know, like, really what makes them, because I mean, honestly, that's when I started doing self-discovery work and kind of becoming a more intentional woman and doing my own work. I mean, I don't have, like, F-boys don't approach me. Non-intentional men don't approach me.
Okay.
Emotionally unavailable men don't approach me. Like, none of them, I don't deal with I don't have anybody approach me where I'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe like I keep dealing with this type of man.
Right.
Back in the day, hell yeah. Like I'm a magnet, you know what I mean? But like now I carry myself, but I think it's just because I have confidence. I'm carrying myself in a different manner. I have that knowledge. And I just think that when you get to that level of being more awakened or a more conscious woman, like the men that aren't about shit aren't going to approach me because they know I'm not, I mean, there's no way that, I mean, it just won't work. They're not going to approach, they just don't approach me. And so it's just definitely changed how dating works nowadays, which is better because I don't have to deal with all the bullshit or breakups or all the things that can hurt you.
So I mean, how many men now though that potentially could be a good fit for the love coach are not? Because I mean, to me, it's a flip side. It's like I've learned now that I have boundaries, but now I'm imposing boundaries that don't need to be imposed anymore. Now I'm not being open and I'm kind of closed off, and it's possibly a really good person who may want to, take me on, right? And I'm not picking on you per se, but like I've noticed that with women who I've known in the past, or it's like, why are you single? And they're like, well, I know exactly what I want. And to me, that's like boundaries. But to me, that's like really tight.
That's really like a wall.
It's like really tight boundaries. It's like, now I want a man that's 6 feet. Now I deserve a man. After you've been abused physically, mentally, emotionally, one of the three or whatever, now it's like I have these really tight boundaries. He has to be 6 feet. He has to make this type of...
Those aren't boundaries. Those are like standards. They're saying my standards are like you got to be 6 foot, which really should be a preference. But the fact is boundaries and walls and all that are different. Boundaries, I don't have to impose my boundaries.
Okay.
I don't ever have to say this is like, you're not going to cross it, or like this is how I feel about something. I never have to say any of that because I embody that.
Okay.
So there's a difference. And people who have to say those things, I really feel like they have walls up. There's a difference. Walls are meant to keep people out, but those same walls will block blessings coming in. Like I had some guy try to reach out and talk to me in my inbox.
I knew it.
He was like, I'm going to break. He's like, I want to break your walls down as a love coach. And I'm like, listen, like, I couldn't be a love coach to
Okay.
do what I do if I had walls up anymore.
Right.
I mean, like I had to come through that too. Like I'm not saying I didn't, but like, bro, we're in 2025. I've been doing this for
Right.
8 years. I don't have walls up. It's called boundaries, and I'm not interested.
But like I think you just spoke to, it's an overcorrection now, right?
can't be-
And I think, well, not just with like people who I know or even you or anything, but like I see that online. Like I see all of these people having all these different podcasts dedicated to relationships, but not in a positive way. Like just basically exposing everyone's problems for fun. But what I notice is that whether it's the men or the women, whichever side of the perspective it is, it's nothing more than an overcorrection. It's like now how does one go from having these shitty relationships for years to having this high standard of this is what I deserve, this is what I want? I no longer want a man who makes $60,000, but I never had a man who made $60,000 anyway. I always had a man who was only made $30,000. Now you go to $100,000. How does that work? How does that work in the mindset of people?
I think delusional.
Okay.
I mean, come on, like you got to be real. Like, let's be realistic. I always say, like, don't ask for something you can't provide yourself. If you can't, if
Wow.
you know,
That's my favorite.
yeah, like if you can't,
Okay.
if you're asking for something that you can't reciprocate, then you have work to do.
Okay.
Not only that, like a good woman wants a good man. And I still have, there's a lot of like great women who still want that standard of like, they got to be at least 6 foot.
Okay.
Like you just went from your population of possibilities to like this then, right? And if that's what you want to deal with, that's fine. But like, are you looking for someone aesthetically pleasing or someone that makes you feel more comfortable because you like 6 foot? I'm a tall girl. I've had short boyfriends and I'm just fine. You know what I mean? Like if you're short, if you're short and your confidence is like 6'6", we're good. You know, like because
Right.
you have to have that. But I think it's just you're limiting yourself. Like I'm sure we all want that, but I mean it's not what it all. It's not. It doesn't turn out always the way you want it to, and you're really limiting yourself if you put your standards to that category.
I always hate that. Go ahead.
When she says that, though,
What is that?
You guys, to your point, I feel like this is the cool spin on like what technology has done to the world now. Like think about Tinder. Like I can tell you what Tinder did to like guys my age when I was in college. When Tinder finally became a thing and it was sweeping colleges all around the world, I was like 20. So I'm 20 on a campus and like I've never been on a dating app, not as a flex, it just wasn't my preference. So I know people who are in healthy, happy relationships who met on Tinder. I'm like, hey, look, that's awesome. Me, I still want the old school of like I tripped over you at the store. But what it did was it made them so selective. I'm watching guys sitting in a room talking about what about this one? Nah.
Oh, that's a
what
good
about her?
point.
Nah, I don't like the bio. To the left. And I'm like, but it's gone vice versa. I'm picking on the fellas, but it went with the ladies too. It's
Yeah, for sure.
and I'm swiping left on everything. Oh, wait a minute. Swipe right. He got green eyes. Now it's made it to a place where like I feel like technology and apps like that who have commercialized and gamified dating, you can be that selective. Like you have filters now. You can actually select filters of her where it's like, oh, I only want to date in this region.
Right.
I only want to talk to people in this part of the town.
Yeah.
And it's like, what?
Yeah. To me, but what you said, to me, from an emotional standpoint of being a man, that's always been hurtful.
It is. Yeah,
It is
Yes.
seriously, it's like I didn't get what I wanted. So I got you, right? You're just, you're not 7 feet tall and make, $900,000 a year.
Yeah.
But I figured out how to love you. That sucks.
It does suck.
When I hear more women say shit like that, I'm like,
trophy.
and I'm like, oh God, that's like a dagger. It's not even me, but it's like a dagger in my chest. When anytime I hear that, I'm like, I feel sorry.
You already know it sucks.
Yeah, I mean, because no matter what, that's something you can't change. And not only that, that's like it is. It's like a chop at your confidence, right? Because that's something you cannot change. But you know what I do find about women who do have that preference and we dig deeper because I just love to like get in it. It's never been my thing. Like
Right.
I always thought I was really attracted to have a shorter guy who thought I was just the shit. My feels like 6'4" now.
Right.
Like you're 5'8" and I'm cute and 6'4" and like you don't care because it makes him feel like more like a
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
And you're like, how'd you pull her? So
Mhm.
I love that confidence and giving that to a partner. But the fact is when I ask women, okay, so tell me what it is about why do they have to be like when we have to go up against that challenge because they think they want what they want.
Right.
It always comes back to it's not about like, oh, that height is so attractive because it's always about, well, I feel better when I'm wearing heels, or I feel better if he's bigger than me, or I feel better. It's always like it makes me more secure, or it makes me feel like I feel like the man if he's shorter than me. Like it always comes back and reflects something within them, but that's where it is. That's the issue.
That's a
Because
deep.
if you are confident, like I'm confident as shit, so I don't care how tall he is. I'm
Right.
here for a good man. Like the height is not a requirement here. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I just need him to be great. So the fact is like that comes because I have that confidence. But when I peel those layers back, those women, I mean, not that they think they're super confident, they have that, but if you have some kind of insecurity, if you feel like you need someone over 6'3" to like, you know,
Yeah.
rock beside of, that's an issue. There's a problem. You
Such
like I
a
said, you slim your dating pool down.
So selfish. You
Yeah.
know, it's so, but not selfish to everyone else. It's selfish to yourself because you are so limited
Yeah.
in your ability to choose now, and the likelihood of you finding exactly what you want is a proverbial needle in a haystack. So what you end up doing, what I tend to notice when you have people who overlook people for so long, for years and years, I look at relationships like a funnel, right? You start off wide, right? With all these options and choices, which is where you begin to start understanding like, this is what I like, this is what I want. And the more you waste time, now you come down to this bottleneck around 40, no matter who you are, man, woman, no matter what, you come down to this bottleneck. And then you eventually just have to pick whoever likes you and who wants to take care of you and who cares for you. And I always laugh at that. I'm like I'll see like a very attractive woman, and she'll be with a guy, and I'm like, I know how that happened. And I won't look at it like she's attractive. I'll look at it like I feel sad for the person on the other end of the equation, because I'm like, in my understanding, I've seen it happen multiple times where a very attractive person, man or woman, will end up with just who they end up. And I'm like, that person just had to take it. And they probably don't even like them that much. It's just the fact that I need to be taken care of now. I'm 45, I'm 50. I never got a degree.
Well, let me help shift
Okay.
perspective.
Thank you.
There are women like me who are just so intentional and awake and conscious that at this point, yes, it's probably like this, but that doesn't mean I'm going to settle because that's what I had to get to.
No, not everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are women you're going to look at, because like when as a bartender, I see a lot of women, especially when I worked in South Florida, you see a lot of aesthetically pleasing women walk in the door with men who are like, how in the hell did that line up? And the personality. Personality is everything.
Personality.
But they sit sideways because their wallet's so thick.
Yeah. Well,
right?
you know what? Like, most men at the bar will say that. First thing they say is, "Oh, he must have money."
Yeah.
But you know,
Okay.
like,
Okay.
A lot of these women have their own money. They've been like that, but they just realize that like there is like some men are still moving from ego. And a lot of those men happen to be aesthetically pleasing too. You know, like some men that, you know, I do a relationship inventory with my clients.
Okay.
And it's such an eye-opening experience. You learn a lot about your core values, your needs, all these different things. But you also see your blind spots and your patterns. And people will be like, "Oh my God, like I've totally like this is a pattern." I'm not just talking aesthetically, like, "Oh, I've always went for brunettes or always go for the athletic type." Where they really start to see, and they also start to understand that like, and I'm missing the emotional piece. So when they go through this and they've done some of the work, you start to look at other things that make people attractive. You know what I mean? Like, it's not always about like the initial. That's why I always tell people it can't be like just based off like we all want someone we're physically attracted to right off the bat. But I try to tell people, don't you remember being in class? Like, I don't know about you, but don't you remember being in class or being in a group or teaching or something in a group, and there's someone you would never even look at twice, right? But because they're the class clown or they're funny or like they have that personality, like you said, it comes through, and now they're like the hottest commodity, and everybody wants to date them. So attraction does grow, and people, I think what happens is people are just really quick to cut that off. You know, like, "Oh, I wasn't attracted. I want to be attracted at first." Okay, but like I get there's times you're gonna be like, absolutely not, I am not attracted. But there are times where it's like if you would have just developed that and then learned more about this person, you guys might have had something good.
You know, I'll pick because I think men are more into looks. That's why it doesn't really matter like what a woman's credentials is. Sometimes it's like we just like what we like. And we're like, man, she's beautiful. I'll do anything for her.
Yeah.
Pretty Woman, right? Remember they're laying in the bed and she tells them. And you remember the Dave Chappelle skit where it was like, he's like, you got to get the hell out of here. You got to get.
As a bartender, I'm obviously at clubs. I'm here to South Florida, to everywhere, and I'm seeing great looking people, you know? And then there was a point when I had started doing this work and I was pretty well off into it, and I started coaching. And I remember I was guest bartending somewhere, and it was a night where like, oh, it's definitely a hype night to be there. And I remember men were walking in that normally in the past I would have been like, oh, hell, like he is like, that's my type. Like that's what I like. And I was just instantly, I remember thinking like, I'm instantly turned off. Like it was no longer my type. Like, was he attractive? Yes. Was I attracted? Absolutely not. So that's when I first was like, oh, this shit has like, there's a point to all this work on yourself. Because I was like, it was an epiphany that time. I know exactly where I was, what bar I was, when it happened. Because I remember that thought, and it happened like 2 nights in a row. Because I worked a Friday night, then a Saturday night, and I thought, this is what that means. Like, it just made so much sense to me because I was like, I've been attracted to the wrong type because
Right.
I was her back then. And now I need
okay.
a different version of me. And what's attracted to me is subjective as it is to everybody. But like different things were like more appealing to me. It wasn't so much about aesthetics. It was more about your, maybe your eye contact, the way you, said hello or, ordered your drink.
Okay. Well, Tawny, I got it right. Tawny, I'm gonna mess that up.
Accent
It's me. It's yeah.
for your audience.
I get
then.
corrected so much in life. Okay.
I feel like the way you say it, but I just don't
everyone.
look up Tony.
It's okay. My mouth is messed up. It's fine. It's just whatever. But you have a lot of knowledge. I can tell why you are a love coach. I mean, honestly, I've watched you, but so many, especially on the internet, you can just fake it all day. You can read some things, off of like chat or whatever, and and fine. But I can tell that you have an in-depth knowledge of relationship coaching, and you are actually helping people. And I think that's outstanding. I've never really understood the love relationship coaching and all that stuff, but I think I have a better interpretation of it and actually what it can do to help other people out. So man, I really appreciate you coming here today. But before I leave, I do want people to be able to contact you. So how can they do that? Could you look right over there and just tell them?
Sure. So on social media, my name is the same. It's Tawny.
It's Tawny. It's Tawny.
Yeah. So maybe I should spell it out for you.
Yes, do it.
CAWNY, and then my last name is Loveless, like Loveless. And that is my last name. Anyway, so everything is, even my website, TawnyLoveless.com, or Facebook, Tawny Loveless, Instagram, TikTok. So you can find me online there. Reach out.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it. Well, thank you so much. Okay. I really appreciate it. I had fun. Sorry, I didn't mean to pull you short. But yeah, so that's what we got for tonight. If you need to get in contact with us, we'd love you to get in contact with us. All you have to do is reach out at clb.geneva@gmail.com. I'd be happy to answer questions, possibly even have you on the show. That's one thing that we like to do is pick people who are in the comment section or who would like to be on a podcast, and you're able to do so just by reaching out. So I want y'all to have a good night and take care. Bye-bye. All right, so